Hey, what's happening, friend? Big Dog Ethan here, coming at you from a recording on Radio Free Nashville. And this is none other than the unnatural state of affairs. You already know the drill. First hour, we talk politics. Second hour, we enjoy some music. Typically, that's how it goes. That's how I'd like it to go anyway, barring any sort of tech issues. But I think we've got most of those worked out. Now, there's going to be there is a bit of an oddity with this show, not because of any sort of tech stuff, but actually because of content-related stuff. So there's going to be kind of a big elephant in the room that I'm going to be missing this week, unfortunately, and that's going to be the victory of Zohran Mamdani on Tuesday night. I literally recorded a whole segment about him, but honestly, I just could not fit it into the show. I wanted to be sure I gave I wanted to be sure that I gave all the developments regarding Iran and Israel last week its due diligence, because ultimately, at the end of the day, the most relevance that the mayoral race is going to have on us is, hey, here's an example that the Democratic Party might try to emulate with other candidates, but that's just such a huge maybe, and especially at this point, as we'll certainly discuss with the Democratic Party's response to Trump's aggression on Saturday night. I still don't have much hope for the Democratic Party anyways. So, and I would hate to get y'all's hopes up for some kind of, big reform movement within the Democratic Party. So, anyways, so we'll be talking about all the developments surrounding Israel, Iran, the possibilities for why this ceasefire just kind of came out of nowhere, and, what's likely to come next in the future. So, but I didn't want to do this show without at least mentioning Zohran Mamdani, because that was just fantastic to see. It was such an adrenaline rush, such a dopamine rush to come home from work, open up my laptop, and tune into a live stream and see that Mamdani had already won in the first round of voting. That was just phenomenal to see. You love to see it. So, anyways, there's definitely good news out there. I just kind of felt like, this stuff that's going on in Iran is too important not to discuss. So, we're gonna get into that. All right. So, for those who tuned in last week, you probably remember me ranting and raging at Israel's unprovoked missile attack on Iran, which sparked a back and forth exchange of missiles and airstrikes, and the Trump regime's threats to also attack Iran and support the apartheid state's offensive war, which could have easily sparked a third world war, if I can talk today, given Iran's alliances with other nuclear-armed global powers. And, the Trump regime's rationale for attacking Iran blatantly ignored the evidence provided by the IAEA and its own intelligence community, which, to summarize, found that while Iran had increased its quantity and enrichment of uranium, they had no evidence of plans to actually design and assemble a nuclear weapon. Now, for the sake of fairness, I do feel the need to note a couple of things regarding my comments from the last episode. One, I did fail to mention that, pulling up the source view here, there we go. Now, I did fail to note that the IAEA actually did pass a resolution a couple of weeks ago declaring Iran in violation of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. It was kind of weird. So there were a few news articles that had mentioned it, but I guess these different news outlets like the AP and Reuters, they had gotten like early notice that the IAEA had already approved the resolution, but they hadn't made it publicly available yet. So I was kind of skeptical as to why I was, even struggling to find it. I went on the IAEA's own website, couldn't find it on there, and really it was just buried under like a bunch of different links that I was having to click around. Anyways, point being is I was able to confirm that yes, they did pass this resolution basically declaring Iran in violation of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Now, that wasn't based on evidence that Iran is planning to develop nukes. That was rather based on a lack of transparency from Iran regarding its nuclear facilities. And that distinction is very important because the IAEA doesn't necessarily have evidence that Iran is building a nuclear weapon. All they know is that their enrichment levels of uranium have greatly surpassed what is really needed for civilian use, or just for like energy production use of uranium. So, does that justify condemnation against Iran? Yeah, I mean, any country with the ability to enrich uranium should allow for an independent agency to fully verify what it's being used for, out of a need for all global powers to ensure that we're moving toward the necessary aim of eliminating nuclear weapons entirely. Does that justify launching airstrikes against Iran? Again, who hadn't directly attacked us, who hadn't demonstrated clear evidence that they were actually building nuclear weapons? Does that justify launching airstrikes against Iran? Considering we don't have that clear evidence that they're producing nuclear weapons, no. We've seen what happens when unverified claims of nuclear weapons possession are used to justify offensive wars. In the case of Iraq, the same companies producing those weapons in the U.S. rake in more profits from the sale of all the other weapons used in the war. Trillions of taxpayer dollars get burned up on yet another imperialistic endeavor, and hundreds of thousands of civilians die. Bringing me to my second little preamble. Tulsi Gabbard. Apparently she has forgotten that exact lesson from the Iraq War, which she built her entire career teaching the public about. During last week's show, I discussed how Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, informed a congressional committee on the lack of evidence that Iran is actually building a nuclear weapon, and how Trump simply asserted, like the next day, that Gabbard was wrong when asked by a reporter about it. After I did the show, this is probably like maybe just a day later, probably in a desperate move to preserve her career, Gabbard posted this tweet. Side note, I'm just going to keep saying Tulsi Gabbard. It sounds weird just to say Gabbard in and of itself. I don't know. It just sounds like a cartoon name of some kind, which is kind of fitting because she's about as dumb as the dumbest cartoon character you could find out there. We'll see why here in a second. So she tweets this out, June 20th. So I guess that, would have been the day after I broadcast my last show. Quote, "The dishonest media is intentionally taking my testimony out of context and spreading fake news as a way to manufacture division. America has intelligence that Iran is at the point that it can produce a nuclear weapon within weeks to months if they decide to finalize the assembly. President Trump has been clear that can't happen, and I agree. My full testimony below." Let's watch, shall we?
Advocates.
Okay, there we go.
Iran continues to seek expansion of its influence in the Middle East, despite the degradation to its proxies and defenses during the Gaza conflict. Iran has developed and maintains ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and UAVs, including systems capable of striking U.S. targets and allies in the region. Tehran has shown a willingness to use these weapons, including during a 2020 attack on U.S. forces in Iraq and in attacks against Israel in April and October 2024.
Now, why did Iran launch those strikes? It's kind of odd. She just kind of mentions that, Iran did this, did that, doesn't really say why they did it, which is typical for these kind of briefings, right? All that really seems pertinent to especially legislators who are just horny for war. All they really care about is who attacked them and not why why the country attacked them or why this adversary attacked them. No. That does not matter for congressional bloodthirsty psychopaths who are bought out by the military-industrial complex and various other industries who would seek to profit off a certain war. So why did Iran launch those strikes? Well, the one against the American military base in Iraq was a retaliation for Trump's 2020 assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He is, or was, Iran's second most powerful leader. This was a major escalation from the first Trump regime after Iran's alleged involvement in an attack on a U.S. embassy in Iraq a few days before that. Now, the other two against Israel, I know I at least talked about one. I'm pretty sure I talked about both of them on the Unnatural State of Affairs. Remember, still doing it at MTSU. These other two strikes against Israel, they were direct retaliations for Israel's missile and airstrikes on an Iranian consular building in Syria and its assassination of a Hezbollah leader. I emphasize all of this so we can dispel the mythical implications that any attack on one of the 800 U.S. military bases is done because other global powers are these black hat villains whose sole motivation is to be evil or whatever the fuck. It might, just might, have something to do with the fact that we act as an aggressive empire across the globe and historically have given minimal to zero fucks about who gets hurt by our actions. And we certainly show that in our federal budget, both as a percentage of GDP and as an actual amount. We spend far more than any country on our military. Nearly $1 trillion last year. For those watching the video version, where does it say it at? That it's, oh yeah, there it is. So spending in billions of dollars, right? There it says 997 billion. That is nearly $1 trillion. Right under it, number 2, it is China with $314 billion. $314 billion. So we spend, doing the rough, at least 3 times more we spend than China on our military budget. So, yeah, we are an imperialist war machine. We are this unending machine of death and destruction that carries out such horrors across the globe, profiting massively off the misery of the civilians in the crossfire. I'd like to note, especially with regards to Iran, for those who actually want to have a more comprehensive understanding of why there are a lot of anti-American sentiments in Iran. There have been some great segments that Hassan Piker has actually done on the history of our 1953 coup of Mossadegh, who was a democratically elected leader in Iran, and how that intervention led to the 1979 Iranian Revolution, which brought this current theocratic regime into power. At the end of the day, with a lot of international conflicts, a lot of it can be attributed to foreign intervention by the U.S. military or, different U.S. agencies like the CIA. Of course, that doesn't get covered a lot in mainstream news outlets, because why on earth would you, actually want to hold power to account when it's a lot more profitable to just, accept the narratives that, PR, what's the word again? Press secretaries. That was it. It's a lot easier to accept whatever the press secretary gives you and just fucking run with it, right? Anyways, all that's to say, this would be a good time at this moment to maybe learn more about, how we actually, how we're in part responsible for fermenting a lot of these anti-American tensions in Iran. Because, again, despite what, just about every presidential administration and every press secretary of every presidential administration would say, we do have some blame to take part in we do have some blame to accept in a lot of these international conflicts. So to pretend as if attacks from other countries are universally unprompted and simply materialize out of thin air, that is to gaslight the American public. Anyways, I digress.
Iran's cyber operations and capabilities also present a serious threat to U.S. networks and data. The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program. In the past year, we've seen an erosion of a decades-long taboo in Iran on discussing nuclear weapons in public, likely emboldening nuclear weapons advocates within Iran's decision-making apparatus. Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest levels and is unprecedented for a state without nuclear weapons. Iran will likely continue efforts to counter Israel and press for U.S. military withdrawal from the region by aiding, arming, and helping to reconstitute its loose consortium of like-minded terrorists and militant actors, which it refers to as its axis of resistance. Although weakened, this collection of actors still presents a wide range of threats, including to Israel's population, U.S. forces deployed in Iraq and Syria, and to U.S. and international military and commercial shipping and transit.
It's so weird that she's like, oh no, here are my full remarks, and then they literally cut off halfway through a sentence. But point being is, in the context provided by Gabbard herself, she still provides no fucking evidence that Iran had plans to assemble a nuclear weapon. And she pulls this stunt to justify an American attack on Iran. Now, for those who don't know, or for those who've just simply forgotten, Gabbard first became a prominent political figure by representing a Hawaii congressional district as a Democrat. Yes, as a Democrat. Her entire shtick, her entire persona was being this anti-war veteran. But after an unsuccessful 2020 bid for the Democratic presidential nomination, she makes this right-wing MAGA pivot, and she takes up this role as director of national intelligence for the Trump regime. So already she's kind of shown she really has no spine or no goddamn principle, right? But despite cultivating this whole anti-war persona for fucking years, within 1 week, after already asserting to Congress that Iran does not have nuclear weapons, she caves to Trump's bloodthirsty whims for war with Iran. Now, for anyone convinced that the Trump regime is some bastion of peace still at this point after his first administration where he increased drone strikes by like, I think it was like 200% or something like that. I can't remember the number specifically. Someone can fact check me on that and leave that in the comments section below. For anyone who is still convinced at this point that the Trump regime is dedicated to peace or whatever, congrats. You got played like a fucking fiddle. But I haven't even gotten to the biggest development yet. So Saturday evening, we were treated to this announcement from Trump on, his knockoff Twitter platform, Truth Social. Oh, where's that at? Yeah, I got a lot of links on here. Yeah, this is it. So this is a screenshot of the tweet that's provided through Job Site News on the actual Twitter. Side note, I haven't gotten Truth Social because obviously there's probably just a lot of nasty ass shit on there with Trump, with it being Trump's platform. But on top of that, I don't really need another social media platform, but anyways, so Trump posts this Saturday evening, quote, "We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site." Ford, I shouldn't be laughing at it, but why did he capitalize bombs? Like, God, we live in hell. We live in hell. I'm going to knock off the whole Trump impression. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Yeah, anyways, everyone obviously, freaks out over this, of course, because this was an unprovoked, baseless insertion of the U.S. military into a conflict between 2 other countries on the opposite side of the fucking globe. And, of course, Iran vows to retaliate, and yeah, everyone's on edge for the next couple of days while Iran and Israel continue with their back-and-forth exchange of missile attacks. Now, on Monday morning, Iran strikes a U.S. base in Qatar. As I've already kind of spoiled here for those who are watching the video version online, it really was not much of a retaliation. From Drop Site News, quote, according to a New York Times correspondent, Iran coordinated the attacks on the American Air Base in Qatar with Qatari officials and gave advance notice that attacks were coming to minimize casualties. According to 3 Iranian officials with the matter, no casualties have been reported, unquote. So that just strikes me as very odd that, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just kind of weird seeing, another global power, show some kind of restraint in their retaliation. Obviously, I don't think they've really been showing that to Israel to a certain extent. We'll go over the casualties in a sec, but there's definitely been a lot less casualties, civilian casualties in Israel. It seems like they've really been trying to target a lot of sites, a lot of military sites. Issue is, of course, and also kind of ironic considering that Israel likes to complain about Hamas using civilians as human shields. Israel, has a lot of these different military bases placed next to a bunch of, placed in a bunch of areas where there are also a lot of civilians roaming about. But nonetheless, Iran overall has been at least doing a decent job of not targeting civilians. Wouldn't that be nice if we could do that too? Man, that'd be wild. But alas, international law, not a concern for the U.S. Almost never a concern for the U.S. because, we're we're the global superpower. No one's going to fuck with us. Unless we fuck with them, of course, but you get what I'm saying. Anyways, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. So here's where everything gets incredibly confusing. Later that same day, Trump posts another wild announcement, and this time it's less coherent than the announcement he made regarding that initial strike on Saturday night. Also, I literally saw this as I was about to head into work. Just, again, another one of those days where I just kind of felt like I was living in kind of hell, I guess. I mean, ceasefire is good news, obviously, but this thing just seems so fucking sudden that it's like, what is this really for? Like, did Trump just like accidentally get into like, did Elon Musk accidentally leave like his whole stash of drugs whenever he got kicked out of the White House, and did Trump maybe get that confused, like that box confused with his dementia pills or something? I don't fucking know. But anyways, this is what Trump had to announce. Quote, "Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world." I gotta take a drink of water, Jesus. "During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful. On the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will, I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't, and never will. God bless Israel." Jesus Christ, I gotta brush my teeth after I said that phrase. God bless that fucking state. God bless Iran. God bless the Middle East. God bless the United States of America. And God bless the world. God damn, that dude has got to cut down on his fucking stimulant medications. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what the fuck he's on, but he's got to cut his dosage. Like, he's just got to cut his dosage, or I don't know. Whatever the case may be, the dude just needs serious help, because it just, even just by reading this message, it looks not only unhinged, but it just looks like a fucking first grader wrote it. And it's so weird. I mean, maybe it was my perception from, like, the first Trump administration, whenever Trump was like on Twitter, and I was actually seeing, his posts a lot more frequently. I mean, at least seemed like there was some like intentionality behind like the simpleness and the lack of, I don't know, the lack of polish with his tweets. But this literally seems like he like turned on like his voice to text feature on his keyboard and just started rambling into his phone. And maybe went back and, like, I don't know, made some phrases all, turned some of the words or phrases into like all capital letters. I don't know. This just seems, even for Trump, this just seems wildly unhinged and like incoherent. So anyways, for the rest of the night, after he posts this, again, wild fucking statement, we get a confusing onslaught of updates. Now, I will say, a lot of these updates, I'm literally just taking these from Drop Site News. I'm going to give another shout out to this outlet. They have been doing a fucking fantastic job of not only continuing to keep reporting on the plausible genocide that's happening in Gaza, that Israel is carrying out in Gaza, but as soon as Trump, as soon as the Iran-Israel, I don't know, war, or the 12-day war, as Trump wants to call it, broke out, I mean, Dropside News was just right on that. They were doing live streams with, their reporters or like other, other experts who can actually say something meaningful, or like provide some meaningful insight about what's going on. They've just been doing a bang up job. And, anyways, whenever all this was happening, I mean, whenever I say like we get an onslaught of different updates, I mean, they are like entirely conflicting within, I would say, all within like 6 hours. I mean, it was absolutely insane. So right after we get this update, Dropsite News reports that an Iranian state affiliated outlet, apparently they were reporting that Iran never got a ceasefire offer. And then right after that, Reuters reports that a senior Iranian official said that Iran actually did agree to a ceasefire. Then you have another Iranian outlet a little bit later who says, no, that didn't happen. We didn't get a ceasefire offer. And then about a half hour later, the Iranian foreign minister clarifies the country's position. He says, quote, as Iran has repeatedly made clear, Israel launched war on Iran, not the other way around. As of now, there is no agreement on any ceasefire or cessation of military operations. However, provided that the Israeli regime stops its illegal aggression against the Iranian people no later than 4 a.m. Tehran time, we have no intention to continue our response afterwards. The final decision on the cessation of our military operations will be made later, unquote. Now, during all this back and forth of trying to figure out, did Iran even get get an offer to negotiate a ceasefire? Did Israel figure that out? And also, like, is Trump just like flat out lying about all this? During all that, Israel launched multiple attacks on Tehran. Then later that night, Iran launched another missile strike on Israel. And just before midnight, Iran announces that a ceasefire is in effect. I'm pretty sure I forgot to... Okay, yeah, there. So yeah, Iran announces that a ceasefire is in effect like right before midnight. Then just after midnight, Trump announces via his Truth Social account, the ceasefire is now in effect. Please do not violate it. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. Like, all caps. Seems like this is something that he just typed out like right before he went to bed. I don't know. I'm sure this is very late for his bedtime. So maybe he was just like staying up and he was just waiting to post it. Though, I don't know. Maybe True Social doesn't have like a scheduled tweet feature. But would have helped Trump down this instance if that isn't the case. But anyways, so Trump tweets that out. 12:30, again, looks like some kind of like, I don't know, ship post right before he crashes, on his big ass bed. All right, I got to take off my sweatshirt. I'm already getting hot here. Now, just before 2 a.m. Tuesday morning, Israeli war criminal and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announces that Israel agreed to a ceasefire. Now, of course, Israel also had to get one last attack in before agreeing to the ceasefire. And after all of this, actually, I should note, it is kind of unclear whether or not this was like after or before, because Dropsite like put this out at 2:20, but this was actually posted at 1:03 a.m. So around the time that Netanyahu announced Israel's agreement to the ceasefire, Israel carries out this last attack on northern Iran. Now, after all this, the very next morning, some reporters hit up Trump the next morning. That's redundant. At the White House as he prepares to hop in the Marine One helicopter.
Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Do you have to respond to Iran?
Why did that not pause? Okay. Just want to be sure to didn't accidentally stop the recording. So, yeah. Trump said that. All right. We should probably put the fact aside that Trump, pretty sure, just became the first U.S. president to say fuck directly to a reporter live on air. Putting that aside, he's not 100% wrong. Two countries lobbying increasingly destructive attacks against each other, both of whom, by the way, are allied with massive nuclear-armed powers, clearly don't know what the fuck they're doing. But if that's true, what does that say about the Trump regime, which is still shipping military weapons to Israel as it incessantly provokes other countries in the Middle East to go to war and continues its genocidal campaign in Gaza? The Trump regime doesn't know what the fuck it's doing either. And something tells me that Trump's outburst here is the side effect of that. Now, what is the fallout exactly from all this dicking around? So in terms of casualties, in Israel, according to the Times of Israel, medical officials say 28 people were killed, over 3,000 wounded by Iranian missiles during conflict. Then, according to the Iran Ministry of Health via drop site news, we're looking at over 600 killed and then over 5,000 wounded. Further, despite bragging repeatedly that they destroyed Iran's nuclear program, we're now seeing leaked assessments from U.S. intelligence agencies that the U.S. strike on Iran did not destroy their capability to produce a nuclear weapon. This comes from CNN yesterday via the ACYN account. I don't know if you pronounce that like Asin. Anyways.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We have major breaking news into CNN. Three sources tell CNN that according to an early U.S. intelligence assessment, the U.S. military strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities last weekend did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back a few months.
That's right. So this is an assessment that actually is out from the Defense Intelligence Agency. That is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it was based on a battle damage assessment conducted by U.S. CENTCOM after the strikes, according to one of the sources. Let's go to CNN national security correspondent Natasha Bertrand, who has this exclusive new reporting. This is to that question that has been asked about how much damage has been done. This is a real question. It's also a political question that has been to something that Donald Trump has been sort of dealing with here recently. What are you learning, Natasha?
Yeah, look, Brianna, this is the first assessment that we are getting that the U.S. intelligence community has found about the battle damage that resulted from those U.S. military strikes on these 3 Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. And as you said, it was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it is worth noting that it is a very early assessment. The strikes were only a matter of days ago, and the intelligence community is still gathering intelligence. They are still working to come up with a full, comprehensive picture of what exactly exactly happened here, but based on a battle damage assessment that was carried out by U.S. Central Command, essentially looking at the images and looking at what was actually damaged, the Defense Intelligence Agency has assessed that the core components of Iran's nuclear program are largely intact, and that Iran's nuclear program has essentially only been set back by months. Now, we presented this information to the White House for comment, and White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, she did acknowledge the existence of this assessment, but she said in a statement that the administration disagrees with it. She said, quote, "This alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. The leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their targets, total obliteration." Now, it is worth noting here that there has been dissent, I should say, within the intelligence community, within the defense community, about just how much of an impact these massive bunker buster bombs would actually have on Iran's nuclear facilities. It was far from certain, given that these bombs had never been tested in an actual combat scenario, whether they would actually penetrate those very, very deep underground tunnels that lie underneath these nuclear facilities. And what we are told is that as of now, this Defense Intelligence Agency assessment, it does conclude at this point, again, it is still very early, that those underground facilities, including the centrifuges, including the highly enriched uranium that everyone has been talking so much about, those are largely intact. Now, of course, this does stand at odds with what President Donald Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth have been saying in recent days about the impact of these U.S. military strikes. Of course, President Trump said it was totally obliterated, and Secretary Hegseth did as well. And he actually also provided CNN with a statement. And he said that, quote, "Based on everything we have seen, and I've seen it all, our bombing campaign obliterated Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons. Our massive bombs hit exactly the right spot at each target and worked perfectly. The impact of those bombs is buried under a mountain of rubble in Iran. So anyone who says the bombs were not devastating is just trying to undermine the president and the successful mission." Now, our sources did emphasize here that there was severe damage that was done largely to the above ground structures at these nuclear sites. And so there was damage done, of course, by these massive bombs. But the core components of the nuclear program, we are told, they are largely intact, and it only set the program back by a matter of months. Boris, Brianna.
Natasha Bertrand, please stand by.
Now, they do stress that the assessment could change, but given the fact that so many outlets were leaked this assessment, I don't know. I feel like that could indicate that the cronies in the Trump regime are wanting to leave this little thread dangling so it can be used to justify future attacks. Because they could easily just come back out and say, "Oh, actually, upon further review, we actually found this intelligence was credible, so that's why we need to go. Join Israel and bombing Tehran or whatever." I could easily see them doing that. I mean, nothing is off the table for this regime. Absolutely nothing. On top of that, however, as a result of Israel's and the U.S.'s attacks on Iran, according to Reuters, just yesterday, their parliament has just passed a bill to fully suspend cooperation with the IAEA. Again, it's this nuclear watchdog agency for the UN. So we can say goodbye to any sort of hope for Iran to not develop a nuclear weapon now, because Israel and the U.S. have once again refused to commit to peace. This is what unlimited imperialist aggression gets you. The whole concept of peace through strength is simply an outright fairy tale. It's a fucking myth. I mean, this whole fucking dick measuring contest between Israel, Iran, and the U.S. perfectly demonstrates that. And to make matters worse, throughout all of this, what sort of resistance do we see from the weak ass liberal resistance, right? Obviously, we're not going to see anything from the Republican side, with the exception of Thomas Massie. Shout out to him. Libertarians kind of suck, but on matters of foreign policy, they're typically pretty good. But in terms of resistance from the Democratic Party, well, we do have some congressional legislators banding together to pass legislation invoking the War Powers Resolution. According to Prem Thakur from the Sateo News outlet, as of Sunday, 59 Democratic congressional legislators and one Republican, Thomas Massey, have signed on to anything. So only 49 of 212 House Democrats signed on to the one resolution in the House. 49? No, that should be 50. I may have done his math wrong myself. I had to redo some of the math. I might have done it wrong. But anyways, roughly 50 of the 212 House Democrats have signed on to the one resolution in the House, and only 10 of the 45 Democratic senators have signed on to either of the two pieces of legislation in the Senate. Further, in a corny June 2nd TikTok video, Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer initially was goading Trump to end any attempts to negotiate with Iran before it was attacked by Israel. And of course, he uses this whole Taco Trump thing as, I don't know, his little, shtick or joke in the video to, really appeal with the kids. We're on the TikToks. Man, what was that video of Nancy Pelosi doing the whole, tic-tac-toe? A winner. Anyways, just this video absolutely has those horrendous vibes, and it is
When it
depressing.
comes to negotiating with the terrorist government of Iran, Trump's all over the lot. One day he sounds tough, the next day he's backing off. And now, all of a sudden, we find out that Witkoff and Rubio are negotiating a secret side deal with Iran. What kind of bull is this? They're going to sound tough in public and then have a side deal that lets Iran get away with everything? That's outrageous. We need to make that side deal public. Any side deal should be before Congress and, most importantly, the American people. If Taco Trump is already folding, the American public should know about it. No side deals. When it comes to
yeah, that's totally the issue, right? Trump negotiating with Iran in any capacity is just horrendous, and really we need public disclosure on it, which, I mean, I guess that's great, but also typically we don't, as far as I can remember, I mean, certainly with the negotiations regarding Israel and Gaza, we really don't get much of a public glimpse into the negotiation process. So, I don't know why Chuck Schumer is expecting that, I guess. I mean, maybe Chuck Schumer is just wanting more transparency, in private meetings with legislators. But I mean, ultimately, then why would you be doing making a whole public video about this? I mean, the public doesn't really care about the fact that you're not getting your private meetings, and the public doesn't really care about the fact that they're not getting full transparency. They just don't want a goddamn war with Iran. Jesus Christ. Now, the good news is with Chuck Schumer, as Prem Thakur noted in the same post I was just talking about, Schumer did eventually sign on to one of these pieces of legislation after Trump, carried out this attack on Iran. Took Schumer at least over a week to actually make that easy fucking decision, but nonetheless, he signed on. Now, what about Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries? Well, as of Monday, yeah, this lazy dipshit still needs to look into it.
Would you support the Rokan War Powers Resolution?
I haven't taken a look at it.
Leader Jeffries.
Thanks.
Speaker Johnson.
Just casually, that resolution that, like, a bunch of Democrats are using to try to rein in Trump's power to, unilaterally use the military to, bomb targets in a country that hasn't directly attacked us, and that we have no evidence, for its possession of nuclear weapons. Yeah, I'll look into it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Man, like I have a lot of other priorities I need to consider, buddy. A lot of people have been calling for Hakeem Jeffries to resign. A lot of people have been calling for Chuck Schumer to resign as well. And totally co-sign that. These two guys, for the past 5-6 months, have just been twiddling their fucking thumbs as Trump, is just taking a sledgehammer to any sort of good thing that we still have right now in terms of diplomatic relations, in terms of, social safety spending. I mean, they are just destroying everything, and we're just watching these Democratic legislators just put their heads in the fucking sand and not do a goddamn thing about it. So, it's pretty insane that Hakeem Jeffries just responds in that very nonchalant way that he still needs to look into it. Now, on top of that too, he did find the time somehow to draft this word salad of a statement. Quote, Donald Trump promised to bring peace to the Middle East. He has failed to deliver on that promise. The risk of war has now dramatically increased, and I pray for the safety of our troops in the region who have been put in harm's way. President Trump misled the country about his intentions, failed to seek congressional authorization for the use of military force, and risks American entanglement in a potentially disastrous war in the Middle East. First, the Trump administration bears the heavy burden of explaining to the American people why this military action was undertaken. Second, Congress must be fully and immediately briefed in a classified setting. Third, Donald Trump shoulders complete and total responsibility for any adverse consequences that flow from his universal military action. So instead of, just outright condemning this blatant, unprovoked attack that we carried out on Iran without congressional authority, he's complaining about Trump's failure to receive authorization from Congress alone, and yet he still doesn't say a fucking word about the House resolution. And all he has to say in rebuke of Trump is that he didn't go through the proper channels to authorize the strike? Why the fuck doesn't he just outright condemn this fucking act of aggression? The worst part is, too, I don't know if it's the worst part, but it for whatever reason, it strikes, I don't know, maybe just feels like it hits a little bit closer to home because this is a little more local. Unfortunately, our own Tennessee Democratic Party mirrored this exact same messaging from Schumer and Jeffries last Saturday. So that morning, sorry about that. That morning before the U.S., carried out its strike on Iran, the Tennessee Democratic Party posted this brilliant fucking video.
Crush President Putin. In about 2 weeks.
In your mind, is Ukraine doing enough to get this?
I'd rather tell you in about 2 weeks from now.
Do you still believe that Putin actually wants to end the war?
I can't tell you that, but I'll let you know in about 2 weeks. I think you're going to find some very interesting items coming to the forefront over the next 2 weeks. We've got the plan largely completed, and we'll be filing it over the next 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to be having a news conference in about 2 weeks. I will make that decision, I would say, over the next 2 weeks. And I'll be making a big decision on the Paris Accord over the next 2 weeks. At some point in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I'm going to be setting the deal. Over the next 2-3 weeks. In about 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, you'll be hearing about it a lot more in the next 2 weeks. Maybe in 100 years from now, maybe in 2 weeks.
I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks.
Two weeks? More like you're too weak to violate international law and bomb Iranian nuclear facilities. Huh. Conservatives owned slay. Like, really? This is the most thought you can put into your Trump attacks? I mean, look, if we give this, I don't know, a best faith interpretation, which, by the way, the Tennessee Democratic Party does not deserve one fucking bit. But if we do, they could just be broadly saying, whoa, look at this guy. Like, he never gets anything done. Problem is, sometimes it's actually good for the general welfare of the public that Trump doesn't immediately follow his impulsive thoughts. Case in point, like carrying out an airstrike on Iran and risking the start of World War fucking III. This is the same exact lazy electoral analysis that led Chuck Schumer to post that dumbass Taco Trump video that got him in even more hot water with the Democratic base. And more comically, however, the party had to do this smooth as sandpaper pivot when Trump carried out the airstrike on Iran that night. Oh, yeah, sorry. I got to pull that up. Shoot. There we go. Quote, Donald Trump is a danger, not just to America, but to the world. No one should accept this, unquote. Say again, my social media intern. Yeah, no one should also accept this bullshit from the Tennessee Democratic Party either. Because I gotta tell you, even if this state wasn't gerrymandered to favor Republicans, or even if the state was gerrymandered to favor the Tennessee Democratic Party, they would be losing in droves with this garbage coming out of their social media accounts where they're clearly demonstrating that they have no fucking principles except bash Trump, Trump bad, bash Trump. That may have worked for the Democrats in 2018 and 2020, but that was just a fucking flash in the pan. Because clearly the strategies and the messaging that the Democratic Party was using at that time, it's fallen out of favor with voters. That's why Trump won in 2024, because they tried virtually that exact same strategy. Maybe they lightened up a little bit on some issues, like, talking about LGBTQ plus issues for one, but for the most part, this is the exact same thing that they were, bumped into the microphone there, but this was the exact same goddamn thing that they were doing in 2018 and 2020, and at some point, that sort of strategy just becomes untenable because voters start to realize, hey, I don't know where you stand on like trying to lower my rent or raising the minimum wage or like where do you stand on unions? Like people just don't know where the fuck you stand on that. And moments like this just make that explicitly clear as to why no Tennessee voter should trust the Democratic Party as it is right now. But we should not forget, we cannot forget, these egregious failures aren't just the result of personal failures from state and national Democratic Party leaders. It's also a result of who their candidates and leaders are representing. Their real constituents. And it's not the ones who, went out to the ballot box and, placed their votes for them. No, it's the ones that donated to their fucking campaigns. Now, let's take Schumer and Jeffries, for example. So considering that this is a war that Israel has been clamoring to start now for the past 30 fucking years, I wonder if his $1.7 million, actually over $1.7 million in donations from the pro-Israel lobby. God, if I can talk today. I wonder if all that fucking money has anything to do with his slowness to sign on to the House War Powers Resolution. Same goes for our boy Chucky Schumer, Charles E. Schumer. Literally, I mean, he's had like roughly the same amount of donations from the pro-Israel lobby. Both of these legislators, by the way, this is throughout their entire career, so it's like a cumulative total. Yeah, I wonder if all that fucking money maybe had anything to do with their, hesitancy to actually sign on to a resolution that would at least attempt to rein in Trump. I think we should keep it real. Probably has no chance of passing either of the bodies since the Republicans control both, both the Senate and the House. But nonetheless, we're still kind of expecting Democrats to put up some kind of resistance, and this is the best we're getting from the leaders of either house. Now, don't get me wrong, while there are some Democrats who are standing up to this, the head honchos of the DNC are doing nothing because, guess what? It ultimately supports what the Trump regime is doing and is only just now expressing any kind of opposition to manufacture some facade of dissent between its proclaimed mortal enemy. Now, there might be some hope for this to change. We'll tackle that in the next segment. But finally, to kind of close out this segment, I have to ask this more overarching question, or the big question, I guess. What happens from here? I'll let this Breaking Points segment from Friday begin my answer.
A senior Iranian advisor that goes exactly to this point. Let me put this up, where basically he's saying, and this is a close advisor to the Ayatollah, saying that it would be a mistake to reach a ceasefire at this point because Israel is going to break the ceasefire in 2 months, and they will use the 2 months or whatever the period is to restock their supplies, particularly of interceptor missiles. Mm-hmm. So any ceasefire that is implemented now will lead to renewed war. We should not allow the enemy, which is currently in a weak position, to revive itself with a ceasefire. And he goes on with that analysis. But I think this is a consequence of the U.S. and Israel not abiding by any of its agreements, whether it's the January ceasefire that they reached with Hamas and then said they were going to break and then broke, whether it was the deal over Edon Alexander, where they said, if you release Edon Alexander, we'll let in aid and we'll push for a ceasefire, and they did none of that. Whether it's assassinating Hania in Tehran as they're getting very close to a deal, and on and on. If you believe that a ceasefire can't be trusted, then why reach a ceasefire unless you are on the brink of regime elimination?
So one of the hosts here says later that that the interceptor missiles for Israel's Iron Dome, or I don't know, maybe more like glass dome. Yeah, those interceptor missiles are starting to run low to the point where Israel was going to need more time to restock their supply. So I'm betting right now that's kind of why we're seeing this ceasefire. And as we've seen with Israel's repeated violations of ceasefire agreements in Gaza, as Ryan Grimm was pointing out there, I think we can expect the same to happen here. Because keep in mind, the groundwork, it is already laid. As I noted earlier, the American strikes on the Iranian nuclear facility in no way halted Iran's capability to enrich uranium. The bloodthirsty psychos in the Trump regime, they're going to ramp up this panic again about Iranian nuclear weapons, and I think we'll be right back at it, committing all the war crimes and enriching all the war profiteers that make this unnatural state of affairs so fucking wonderful. Hey friend, thank you so much for checking out this week's episode of The Unnatural State of Affairs. If you like what I had to say, hit that like button. Got some thoughts? Share them in the comments section below. And of course, be sure to hit that like button so you can be notified the moment a new episode drops. The show broadcasts on Radio Free Nashville every Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. Tune in at www.radiofreenashville.org to enjoy some nihilistic, left-leaning commentary and an hour of punk and rap music. Thanks again, friend, and I'll see you next week. Take it easy.